Hey people, how's it going? Welcome back to another video. Welcome back to another episode of What Makes This Album Great. Now, I actually had planned to do this particular album much earlier, but I thought, no, let's talk about a few others before we get into the albums that I'm purely passionate about. And today is an interesting day because today is December 23, and if you're a die-hard Maiden fan, you know that today is, apart from Steve Harris himself, the longest and only member of Maiden to go through every album, and that is the legend, the man, the guitar player, the lead guitar player, the rhythm. Oh, you know who I'm talking about. Boom, Mr. Dave Murray. It's his birthday today, and I thought, what better day to do a What Makes This Album Great episode on the album that changed me as a person. I've talked about this album several times on several different videos, but finally, we've got an album video purely devoted to it, and that is we're gonna talk about what makes the debut from Iron Maiden one of the greatest albums of all time. Literally, you probably are wondering why I rank this one so high. It's because, just real quick, real brief, this album, when I heard it, it changed my life. It changed my world. It changed everything I wanted to do in terms of the guitar player. Dave Murray is the person that put me onto guitar playing, made another band that made me want to play music and be in a band. So I've just got such a heartfelt, passionate connection to this album, and hopefully by the end of this video you will understand why I rank this album so high, and we can go through it together and come to a conclusion that we can both agree on what makes this album fantastic. So yeah, we're going to tackle Maiden's first album today. Obviously, as we can see, it is self-titled. I just held up the original vinyl. I've got the CD sitting here as well. This is the 1998 remastered CD, but because of me being lazy, I'm just going to edit in a picture, and that saves me holding up physical copies all the time. So yeah. It was released on April 14, 1980, so in 2021 that marks 41 years, and to this day I still play this album probably more so than any other Maiden album. The only one that might come close to it is probably in this day and age, Somewhere in Time. I really, really love that album, but that's neither here nor there. We're talking about the debut. So yeah, cool, quick little backstory. Iron Maiden, it's the first album. We've got Steve Harris is on it, obviously playing bass, and we've got Dave Murray, happy birthday, on lead guitar. You know, they're both lead, they're both rhythm, they both do everything. But we've got Paul Di'Anno on vocals. We don't have Bruce yet, he hasn't turned up. And we've got Clive Burr on the drums, who is now dead. I think he's been dead for nearly 10 years. Did he die in 2013 or 2011? One or the other. And you've got Dennis Stratton playing the other guitar, which I didn't actually know at first until I dwelled into later ideas of Maiden, and then I actually realised, wait a minute, yeah, there's Adrian Smith's not on this album. But anyway, all good. So before we get into track by track, just alone what makes this album great is I think the fact that it entered the world, it came out of the punk scene. Like, it's sort of like a punky album, but it's a lot more musical and a lot more technical going on. I think that's what really, really differs this album from what was happening from when it came out. Obviously, you've got the new wave of British heavy metal. They came about, and bands like Maiden, Venom, Motorhead, Angel Witch, and Saxon, a couple of others, and even Def Leppard, but they're a bit more commercial. But yeah, don't want to talk about them. But Maiden were the top guns. Maiden were the one that all these other bands were like, oh wow, look at that. And this album is pretty much like a greatest hits. Well, no, the first two are. This album consists of like most of the songs that were played during their live sets, and were the ones that the fans responded to the most, like the ones they enjoyed. And yeah, literally, very few albums have songs on it that are like track 1 to track 10, the end, banger. There's always like one or two fillers, but however, not on this album. No way, not on this album. And now we're going to tackle each song bit by bit and dissect it and explain why it's awesome. So the first song that comes on this album is Prowler. Now, Prowler is a awesomely fun song, which got like it's dated. You can say, this whole album is dated. Of course, that song's dated. It's sort of like a single, but it's not a single. Running Free was the single, but it could have been. It's got this awesome, like, chug riff, and it's just, well, it's not really chug, it's more, it's a heavy metal, it's a classic heavy metal riff. I think that's just what you could call it. There's some cool, that album, that song kicks you in the face straight away with what this album's about. Like, there's some already on that song. It's a sort of simple song, but there's some real technical playing going on in front of it, and it's just really, really cool. And then it's a quick little, 3-minute song or whatever, and then you get struck in the face with a ballad already, sort of. It starts as a ballad, but it gets heavy. It's Remember Tomorrow. It's a really, really cool sort of song, and it's a longer one of the longer ones anyway. But it's, like I say, it starts off really slow, and you think, oh, okay, we're going to have like a ballad already. It's a bit soon. But nah, it picks up and it gets heavy, and it's sort of like there's a few time changes in it, and it really like takes off and really, really goes for it. And that's a really, really cool song. I didn't like it at first because I was all about metal and fast and thrash and heavy when it came out. When I found it, sorry, not when it came out. Moving on to track 3 is Running Free, and Running Free is like this. Well, it's a single, and it's very radio friendly compared to the rest of the album, you could say. It's very simple, like anyone could have come up with these riffs on this song, but the solos in it, there's not really solos, they're more like, they're just like lead licks, I think. You've got the two guitars that harmonize over these downscaled, like, repetitive riffs, and they're really, really cool. It's weirdly, like, in the last 10 years or so, maybe even 20 years, it's come back into the live set at the end. If you've listened to it in Live After Death, that's a really, really cool sort of crowd participation song. You get half of it to sing, I'm Running Free, and it's really fun. It's really cool. But the next song is the song that makes this album, at least this song is what makes this next side great. Is what makes side A great, and that is Phantom of the Opera. Now, when I heard this song for the first time, I honestly died. I couldn't really believe what I was hearing. At that time, I had heard Sweet Child of Mine, we'd heard Welcome to the Jungle, all that real sort of rock radio music that we hear. But Phantom of the Opera was just such a step up from radio rock music, This was like my first, at the time, I was like, this is what metal is, because I hadn't heard any other sort of metal. So I was like, it's not the heaviest song, but it's just so musically articulated, and it's just so well written. The first riff is a bit repetitive, the verse riff rather, is a bit repetitive, but once you get through, like, it's a 7-minute song, so once you get through like 2 minutes of that, and then the chorus riff comes in, which I didn't know was the chorus until the album booklet told me it was the chorus. I'm like, it's more like a bridge. But anyway, that part's cool. I remember playing that with my band, and once we got through the verse and the that chorusy bridge section came on, that's when it was like, yes, this song is so much fun to play. And then it goes into this cute little, like, mid-tempo solo. Like, it's nice to listen to. It's still shreddy and whatnot, but then it resolves, and then there's like this 4-5 second bass solo, and then this triplet lead section that just goes on for the next probably like 2 minutes or so. The guitars are harmonized, the bass is going insane, the drums are just awesome, and then the band all comes together, and then they start it's like galloping, but a real slow gallop. It's more like a trot, but it's really, really good. It's so heavy, it's so bouncy, and just so damn good. And then there's more solos, there's more harmonizing. It's amazing that song is on the first album. You'd have thought something that was that clever would have been written on like album 4 or something, once they had learned how to do it. But I don't know when Phantom of the Opera was written. For all I know, by the time this album came out, they were probably playing it for 5 years already. So who knows? And then it resolves back to the first riff, the verse riff and the intro riff, and boom, it's really, really cool. Now, on the original album, this is my mum, so this is an original pressing from 1980. On the original pressing, at the end of this Phantom of the Opera song, it ends, and then there's like 10 seconds of silence, and then Paul Di'Anno's vocal comes back out of nowhere, and says the last line of the song again. There's no music, there's nothing, it's just his voice, and it's like, oh, demonic. You know, it's just like out of nowhere. And if you don't know the words, it sounds like nonsense. But it's kind of just like, oh, what a weird like touch. But that's taken out on like all the remasters and all of it. It's not there, and all the greatest hits stuff. It sucks that it's not there, but that's okay. You then flip the side over, and you get punched in the face with a instrumental. Now, this is what, if Phantom of the Opera was the beginning of like all the shotgun wounds, and I thought I could, at the end of that song, I felt like I could get up and carry on. I heard the intro to Transylvania, and that was like a bullet to the head. That knocked me down, and I was like, there's no getting up after that. The tone of that song is, I mean, the whole tone is the same throughout the whole album, but on that song in particular, that intro riff and the drums and the cymbals, it's, I don't normally care for instrumentals so much, not when they're a band that normally doesn't do them, but that one in itself is so good. It's probably my favorite one it's probably my favorite one, just going over Genghis Khan off Killers. But yeah, honestly, Transylvania is so good. My band did a terrible cover of that. Thankfully, we took it off the internet, so I can't show you. But it's so fun. It's just a really, really good song. And if you listen to it and you think this isn't heavy enough, it could be much heavier, you're right. It could be much heavier. Go listen to Iced Earth's version, and that will be like, yes, that'll give you a much cooler appreciation for the older version of Transylvania. It's such a good song. Now, if you... Hang on. All right, we'll keep going. Next, it fades into Strange World. And again, this is sort of like Remember Tomorrow, but it's much more calmer. This is another sort of... I think it's like the second Take a Breather out song. You know, it's very pretty. It's very, very beautifully sang. And the solos in it, they sound really, really cool. Even though it's like, it's all distorted, it sounds really, really nice. The tones are all good. Like, they're not all good, they're all good tones, you know. It's really, really nice. The lyrics in that are beautiful. That's my mum's favorite song. And I used to not like it, again, until I got over being thrashy and realized that, no, it is a good song. It's a really, really good song. And then just as you've taken a breather and you think, yeah, okay, cool, I'm ready for some more, you get hit in the face again with Charlotte the Harlot. Now, she's an interesting character. It's just a sort of like, it's a fun song about a hooker. You know, it's, if there's anything that might be filler, you could say it's this one, but it's honestly really cool. I quite like it. The riff is like a, I don't know, it's a riff that's like all over the place on the guitar neck when the intro. And then it's fun to sing, and there's like a cool, like peaceful breakdown in the middle, and then the drums kind of bring it all back together, and then the band resolves, and it's really, really cool. It's got a cool vocal line. I really like it. It's really cool. And this song has the this album has the famous Iron Maiden song. This is where it comes from. To this day, they still close every show with that song, as they did in 1976. Really, really cool. However, that song is probably my least favorite Maiden song on the album, because I just don't know. I don't know. I just really don't like it. I'm glad it's last and not first, but that's all good. If you know Maiden, you probably know the Iron Maiden song. So I'll let you tell me what you think of that. But then, what makes it interesting, the album? If you've got this one, if you've got an old version, you will not have the song Sanctuary on it. But if you've got a 1998 remastered version of the first album, like I do, they've put Sanctuary on here. Sanctuary is a song that was released on its own. It's not a single. It doesn't have a video or anything, but it's just like it was just like a standalone single. It's not on the first album. It's not on Killers. You know, they just never put it on an album until they re-released the first album. However, I've just read actually that once that was released, all the re-releases afterwards, so like all those digipacks that they've released lately, with like all the with the album picture on the top of the spine, apparently they've taken Sanctuary back off those albums. So if you think you're a diehard fan and you have every Maiden album but haven't heard Sanctuary, go check it out. It's pretty cool. They played it at the gig I went to, the Somewhere Back in Time tour, which was so weird. I was not expecting them to play Sanctuary. But anyway, yeah. There are certain songs on this album that stand the test of time and still need to be played live, like all the time, and it's such a shame that like half of well, not more, the whole album pretty much has been discarded on the set lists. They only do it for, you know, special tours, like Somewhere Back in Time had Phantom of the Opera on it, which I died. I saw that live. I couldn't believe it. You know, they did Transylvania in the 90s, and then they did the Early Days tour, which is the shirt I'm wearing. I love the Early Days. I was forced to love the early days of Maiden. But yeah, honestly, if you haven't heard this album from start to finish, if you've heard like a couple of songs, go out of your way, sit down and go and listen to it. It's like 37 minutes long. It's not hard. Like I say, there's not really a song on there that is a filler. They're not there to make the album longer. They're just all really, really good songs. And it's such a staple of not just Maiden in the future, but metal in the future. It's such a staple, groundbreaking album that, you know, there are so many bands out there that maybe not cream over the first album like I'm doing, but they'll probably cream over, like, you know, Power Slave or Number of the Beast, all those real classic albums. They all dissect from this, the roots. It's so cool. I keep saying it, Phantom of the Opera is like this guitar explosion of almost, it's like the most progressive song on the album, and it won't be the most progressive they've ever done, but like doing that in 1980, you know, it's like on a heavy metal album, it's like, it's not a prog album, it's not Yes, it's not Genesis, it's none of that, it's just punk with time changes. You know, it's honestly such a good album, and I would highly recommend it to everybody. Even if you're not a metal fan, I would say go listen to that and tell me you don't like metal afterwards. Honestly, it's just such a really, really cool album, and it needs to be loved more. And I really hope that me sitting here chatting to you has made you sort of sit back and be like, you know what? All right, I'll give it a moment. I'll give it a go. Honestly, it's so much better than a lot of their other stuff. In my opinion, I love the band. I love everything they do, bar a few albums. But anyway, I ranked them all. I ranked all of Maiden's albums. I put this one incredibly high. If you're interested in that, go look at it. It's right there. But yeah, I've got another What Make the Album Great episode coming up. And then other than that, that's my self-promotion. But until that happens, everybody, have a great day, have a great night, have a great Christmas, actually. Like I say, it's December 23, so happy birthday, Dave Murray, 65 years today. And I can't thank you enough for being the guitar player that you are and everything that you did to inspire my little 15-year-old mind. And to this day, you still do. But yeah, anyway, team, go check out Maiden, the self-titled. Do it. You won't regret it. So once you've gone and listened to it, hit me up and we'll talk about it. See you then.